Today's session, it's a short session, 30 minutes, where I'm going to talk through and demo a number of areas around resource management, so how organizations that we work with tackle the challenge of resource management, and then demo the one of the tools that we have developed to meet these requirements. The subject that we're going to tackle today is the age-old balancing act between delivering projects and managing resources. The project management community have plans, milestones, deadlines to meet. Resource management, they have a finite capacity. They need to think about hiring. They need to think about training. How do we achieve that balance between when we can deliver projects with the resources available, or the resources we will have available? It's age old. It's been around for as long as projects have been delivered, and it is a challenging area. It is a challenging topic. So what I plan to do is talk through our approach, the organizations that we work with, their approach to this this challenge, and then I'll move over to a demonstration of a tool set that we've delivered at many customers that help them achieve this this balancing act between the two stakeholder groups, the two communities. In terms of a process, I think it's useful just to outline and break it down to basics. What typically an organization goes through in terms of the resource coordination process. We've identified two stakeholder groups. There's the project community and there's the team or the resource community. Typically, the project community will develop a plan, and that will build up a picture of the resource requests or the resource demands in the future. That can be at a generic level, by skill, by competency, by team, or can be in certain cases for named individuals. Typically, that data then is made available to the resource management function, the team. The resource management function analyze those requests or those demands, and also factor in other items that are not necessarily visible to the project community, things like absences, things like leave, things, other attributes that will draw down and demand on the capacity. The resource management function can then commit a level of resource to those requests, and then typically feed that back to the project management community. Project management, project planners can then compare the commitment versus what was requested, carry out, apply that commitment to their plan if that's something that works for them, and then compare that that request commitment again, and if necessary, go through the loop again. It may be that the commitment from the team, from the resourcing, it doesn't meet the PM, the project management, the project planner's requirements. There's a critical milestone that needs to be met, and another iteration, another pass of this process needs to be completed. But that, at a very high level, breaking it down to its basics, tends to be the key steps, the key stakeholder groups, and the key flow of data that an organization manages. In terms of focusing on resource capacity and how that feeds into and works alongside project availability, we've defined what we term the basic load. So we've got a resources overall capacity, and this basic load that we talk about is made up typically of a number of things: planned absences, other operations, team meetings, time that a resource isn't available for a project, training and so forth, and then perhaps other activities that are not part of a project portfolio. They're other things that a resource manager or team manager has requested that a resource works on. The net effect of these activities, the basic load, is to reduce the resources availability for projects. So they're not 100% available for projects typically. These elements will reduce that project availability. And then this is where the challenge, this is where the balancing act comes in. We typically get a demand coming in from multiple projects that may exceed that project availability or fall short. So taking a slightly different view of the same approach, we have the two stakeholder groups that I mentioned earlier. We have the project management community, and we have the team manager or the resource manager. We have the overall headline capacity of a resource, and as mentioned, we then have the request picture coming in. So project management community are building up a number of plans, a number of projects, and effectively requesting resources for that. Team manager, their focus is on their team, managing their team's capacity. They know or are aware of the absences that are planned, any other operations, as I mentioned, team meetings, training that may be going on, and any other operations and activities that the team are dedicated to. And what we get then is, as previously shown, that project availability line. In this case, we have the scenario where 3 projects are making requests, and the sum of those requests exceed the project availability. So what then, in what we typically find in organizations, and the way our tool set that I'll be demoing shortly, how this sets about managing these two data sets, these two stakeholder groups, is a means of committing to these requests and feeding back to both, and giving immediate feedback to both sets of stakeholders where potential issues are, be it from a team perspective or an individual resource, or from a resource perspective on an individual project. So the team manager then works on the commitments. So in this example, very simplified example, the team manager has committed to meet project A's resource commitments. So what the ideal scenario is that immediately there's a green light available to the team manager to say you've satisfied the commitments from project A, and equally the project manager sees a green light, they've got commitment, full commitment of what they've requested. Project B, the team manager in this case, is partially meeting those requests and committing back a level of resource based on certain thresholds that may be coming up amber, and again feeding back to the project management community. Haven't got quite the full set of requests committed, but it's within an acceptable threshold. And in the case of project C, the requests coming in, there's a big shortfall in what's been committed. So the team manager gets a red light to indicate you're not satisfying the request coming in on project C, and the project management community responsible for project C immediately see as well at that shortfall. So it's a very simplified scenario, but it shows you the building blocks, it shows you the stakeholder groups, and in an ideal world, a tool set, a solution will allow both stakeholder groups to manage that request, and then to manage the commitment, and immediately visually compare where there is first of all, the full commitment, any partial commitment, or indeed a significant shortfall in the commitment versus request piece. And the objective of the tool set and the solution that we're putting forward is to, first of all, work off a common data set. So there's no Excel sheets, there's no data being emailed around, not multiple versions of the requests. It's a single source of truth on the request side. And once the resource manager has carried out their commitments, it's a single source of truth. And the idea being, in any discussions, any replanning, any revisions of the commitment side of things, is working off a single source of truth, and all conversations are informed conversations. There's no gray areas, there's no ifs and buts around the tool sets or data missing. The visualization of these commitments versus requests gives the PM an informed position that then perhaps they need to talk to the team manager. In this case, project C perhaps needs to have a conversation with that particular team manager to ask, can their project be prioritized, but that team manager also sees the other priorities and the other competing projects. So that's the principle, the concept behind the tool set that I'm going to be now demoing. The final green here is this team manager looking at their particular team. They're seeing a green indicator, none of their resources are overcommitted. So from a team manager's perspective, all is green. the application that I'm going to start demoing in a few moments now. The idea behind that is we have on the green in the green section here, projects being built up and building that request piece. So using Microsoft project plans, requests coming in, and then leveraging the SharePoint platform. We have two components to the TeamManager suite. The box on the right is what we call the team sites, and that's the space that the resource manager or the team manager will operate in. You'll see that that'll be the first section we go to. That'll give them a user interface whereby they can manage the non-project work, the project requests, and the commitments to those, and feed those back. The second element here, the project site element, is that feedback loop back to project management. Now we deliberately and intentionally, these solutions, we feed requests over at a point in time. Resource managers work on those requests and feed those commitments back. But what the tool doesn't do is adjust the schedule. It gives the project management community visibility of the request versus commitment to then have an informed look at their plan and adjust accordingly, or indeed have another conversation and iteration with perhaps with the team manager to see if there's anything can be done to meet the commitments, or sorry, to meet the requests that have come through. So I'm going to move on now to the live demo of the solution. So as mentioned, this is a fully web-based solution running on the Microsoft stack. We have here a project server, project space, and down the left, some of the standard projects, resources, some of the standard quick access menu options. You'll note here, I have a number of tiles available. I'm an administrator in this system. I can see multiple teams, but typically a team manager coming into this site would see a tile just for their specific team, or indeed we can navigate to this if we click on the resources, which brings us to the resource pool of project server. We can then also navigate through to a specific tile. So I'm going to work through a scenario here where I'm the team leader for the development team. So I'm going to click on my team on that tile, give it a second while it loads, and then I'm going to move into the planning space for my team. So a few comments on the navigation options. Behind the scenes, we can manage the settings. We can set the color coding for our thresholds and various other visualizations as we use the tool. We have also a number of options whereby we could perhaps reload and refresh resource information. We could reload project information if we need to do a refresh based on some updates that have just come in from projects. And when we're ready, we can save and publish this information. Save can be an interim position, and when we're satisfied, when I'm satisfied as a team manager, I've done the best on the commitments, I can publish that, and that will make that available back to the PM community, project management community. The overall view that you see is by design very much geared towards Excel users. We find a lot of organizations do this resource management, this tactical resource management in Excel. They get a download of data from project, they get a download of data from a HR system maybe that's got training and absences. It's worked in Excel, sometimes using quite complex calculations and so forth, and then there's a process where that information is manually fed back to the project management community, and then another iteration or a replan of the plan of the schedules is completed. So the idea, the concept behind this tool is for the resource manager, for the team manager, this looks and feels quite familiar. It's like Excel, and that's by design. So walking through working down the list of the grids here, I'll hopefully give you a feel for how we build up this picture. So as I mentioned, I'm the development team lead, and I've got some headline capacity of my team. I've got 3 members in my team. I've got Daniela, David, and Daryl down at the bottom here, and their headline capacity is visible here in these cells across the bottom. The top is their kind of current status based on commitments. So at the moment, most of it's blue. We have a few months where things are getting a little bit tight in terms of commitments, but we'll see as we walk through this, we'll see that change. So as I say, we've got our headline capacity based on 100% availability. Moving down, looking at the absences, what we can do here is plan any absences that we may be aware of for individual resources. I mentioned if there is another system capturing that, we can preload this. This can be imported and preloaded. I'm assuming we don't have that individually. I know when my team have some vacation, so I can say David has planned 40 hours a week off in May, for example. That's entered. You can see that goes into the overall absence and further reduces the overall capacity. You can see similarly on training, we can say that there's a training course that David is due to be on, and also Daniela. So like Excel, we can drag and drop, and we can see there we've got 80 hours training in May, again reducing the overall capacity. A very similar idea on operations. So this is slightly different to kind of absences. We can have things like general operations. So for example, team meetings, we can book in team meetings recurring month by month across the whole resource. Maybe the team meetings are getting a bit longer and we need to make that 12 hours, and I can extend that down. I can copy that down and copy that out to the right if need be, as well, just to again to reduce the overall capacity. The categories of operations are completely configurable, so if you've got your own terminology, your own categories, we can build those in. So again, you can see what we're doing here is reducing that overall capacity, and in particular the project availability, what overall capacity these resources have for projects. We can look at other individual operations, and this may be there may be specific things that only you as a team manager are aware these individuals are working on. They may be working on some bid work, some R&D work. These aren't managed in projects, perhaps. They don't fall into the category of absences and operations, but there's certain things, certain activities here that we need to plan individuals against in certain months that is going to make them less available for projects. So as a team manager, I work through these sections, build up that picture, with the result that I end up with a project availability picture by month for my overall team. Looking down then to individual projects, I can expand this out, and I see there are a number of projects here that are requesting resource from my team. The green indicates that we have a full set of requests and commitments. So project 1, I don't need to do anything about it. It's all green, it's all good, and that doesn't impact the overall team, so there's no need to go back and revisit that. But if I look here at the coming up in August, we've got project 10 and project 13 here. Both of which have requested 80 hours of my team. Now you'll notice the screen's starting to get quite busy here. We've got a lot of data, particularly on this top section. So what we can easily do is select project 10. I'm going to have a look at the requests coming in on project 10 and see what I can do from a commitment perspective. And what I can do is simply filter that out. So I'm focusing project 10. That's the one that I'm focusing on. I should have mentioned as well, on the project side of things, we can bring in metadata associated with projects. So if there's a priority, if there are high priority projects or critical projects or mandatory projects, we can pull in metadata associated with these projects to help me as a team manager prioritize. As I mentioned, we've got 2 projects requesting 80 hours. I simply don't have 80 hours across my team. So I can immediately focus in on the high priority projects and work towards committing those, and then those projects with a lower priority will come next. So I'm focusing on project 10. I've got my 80 hours, and those 80 hours were requested on a generic development project. Now, what I can see is Daniela has got some time, and Daniela and David both have some time. So what I'm going to do on project 10 is simply add Daniela to the team. So if I do add item, that will add Daniela in, and if I do the same for David, add item. If I now look at project 10 again, you can see here we've got Daniela at the bottom half of the screen, and we've got David. So 80 hours requested, And if I look at Daniela, in August, Daniela has got 48 hours. So I can commit all 48 hours of Daniela, which is green for Daniela. But if I still look at this from a project perspective, I still need to find 32 hours. Good news is David has got 38. He's in the team for this project. So I can commit 32 from, 32 from David, and in it goes green for David, green for Daniela, and green for the project. So that's a good result for that project. If I now remove the filter, we can look down and we can see project 10 is all green, but we now have to deal with project 13. So I've now got less availability across my team because I've fully committed everyone in that month, or sorry, Daniela and David, to that project. I've actually only got 36 hours left on my team from Daryl and from David. So project 13 is going to be disappointed. I can go ahead, create that commitment and pass that back, and then have the discussion with project 13. Project 10 is is a critical importance, so we've had to prioritize that. Or it may be the case that I will revisit this and commit less to project 10 and a little bit more to project 13. But working off a common data set and immediately getting visualizations from a team perspective, how I'm doing in terms of the commitments against the projects, and how my resources are doing in terms of their overall load. There are some out-of-the-box reports for this suite. We can look at the overall picture from a resource perspective and where we might be exceeding capacity, and similarly on a project side of things as well. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is circle back and show how that feeds back to the project community. So if I go now to Project Center in Project Server here, I've got a list of projects. This is standard Microsoft Project Server capability. I'm going to click into Project 4 here, and you'll see here within Project 4 we have a little app which is giving me some feedback in terms of my requests and commitments. Note, it hasn't changed my schedule. It's not gone in and lengthened any tasks based on commitment. This is simply a mechanism here for me to then look at what I requested, look at what was committed, and take any actions that I might need on the schedule. Overall, this is green. It's looking good. All of my requests, I got a commitment. In the development team, I requested Daniela, and I got Daniela fully committed. That's great. If I look at the next team here on the services side, I can see I've got overall all the commitment that I requested. However, if I look at this in more detail, you can see that I requested Sally. I didn't get Sally committed, but I got Sean. So the team manager for the services team decided that Sean was a resource that they could commit to. Now, that I may be fine. I'm running this. I've now got my project manager hat on. Maybe that's something that I can deal with. Sean is suitably qualified, and I can do that. Or alternatively, the customer may have requested Sally, or Sally may have a specific skill that I really need. This information allows me to go back to the team manager for the services team and have a discussion and say, I requested Sally, you give me Sean, is there any chance we can switch these out, and so forth. But again, we're working off a single common data set, and we get the feedback loop back into the project management community, as I said, to have that informed discussion and make informed decisions around rescheduling or making further requests of the resources and the resource manager.